Okay. I'm assuming that you can see my screen now. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Uh, Last week, in fact, in last 2 weeks, we have tried to set up the base for basic fundamental concepts of design. And on Thursday, when we were going through this lecture, we went through the process of identifying the objects, and we also looked at, how these objects interact with each other and how we can, actually go through those 5 steps. So we were going through these 5 steps and trying to understand that how we can come up with a design. So gathering the requirement, of course, this is done in your SRS. Description of the application is done in your scenarios, again in SRS. Then we identify the main objects and describe their interactions, and eventually we're going to be creating a class diagram. So we were going through these 5 steps. I think we were done with this step till here, and we were trying to actually kind of move into this one. So let's start from a couple of slides before where I stopped on Thursday, just to have a more what you call a cohesive discussion today. So we talked about this the other day, and we said that based on your scenarios, you're gonna be able to go on and identify your objects. And once you're able to identify your objects, of course, you can identify potential interactions between them and cardinalities and so on and so forth. But the next question which we are trying to now address and answer is, what are the behaviors for these classes, right? Because we want to understand what are the things these objects will be doing for the application to work. So we're trying to get to a point where we can truly identify what are and what are not classes, right? Because at the end of the day, the ones I showed you in the previous slide are actually, potential classes. Now, with the help of behaviors, we will try to, or with the help of identifying the responsibilities of these objects, we'll try to identify, which one of these are actually going to be classes. So again, the key point here is, of course, we have to start from somewhere. So we'll start from our scenarios and we'll look for the various verb phrases. And I'm gonna, just to save time, I'm gonna show you this without us doing the exercise. We have these potential verbs or behaviors in our simple scenario we have. So customer verifies items. Customer provides payments and address and process sales. He or she validates payment, confirms orders, provide order numbers, check the status of the order, and send an email, right? And system will send an email, right? So far, so good.
Yes.
So we believe
Yes.
that these ones, and of course they are these. Sorry, where is my cursor? Yeah. So these are the ones which are potential behaviors or for our application. Some of them, will come in as they are. They will be just, very obvious. Some of them needs to be combined and some of them needs to be split. But this is our starting point. So basically we looked at our scenario and we looked at some potential verbs and we said, okay, these can be potentially behaviors for our application. Do you agree with these ones as a starting point? I think so, yes. Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Fine.
go ahead. Perfect. So not all of these, as I just said a few minutes ago, not all of these verbs will become behavior. Some of them will be combined. Sometimes you might need to split them up. Some of them even are not even required. Sometimes you will rename them. So this is all your exercise as a designer. This is something you will do, but this is a good starting point. And but it's not always very obvious where the responsibilities belong. Which I mean is that yes, I can see that these are my potential behaviors, but which object they belong to can be sometimes trickier. For example, process sale. What do you think about this one? Or let me ask you a simpler one.
What does it exactly mean, Doctor?
Exactly. Well, the question is, I'm saying here, customer provides payment address to process sale, right?
Okay.
So we believe that processing of the sale is a behavior.
It's a method, I think, or behavior. Not a class.
And which class it will belong to, or which object it will belong to? This one.
Maybe order.
Maybe order, yes. Why not customer? Because customer is doing it.
It will be dependent on customer. If the customer disappears, the order will disappear also, I think.
Because the attributes are in the order class.
The attributes are in the order class.
It's a trigger to both customer and the order. The customer will trigger the process sale to make order or something. Like.
Exactly. So the customer will trigger it or it will start it. Absolutely. So that's why I'm thinking as a designer, well, if the customer gonna do it, why not I just put this into customer class?
Doctor, maybe.
I think.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mohammed, you maybe go first, then Akbar can go.
Yes, I think I would put the process sale in the order, then the customer could confirm the order happens. Like if something happened, it will be notified. Maybe the customer will, if someone else would like order something.
Yes. Yes. What about Akbar? What's your thought on it?
I think it should be on a class with the would provide payment and address and validate payment.
Doctor?
Yes, Abdullah.
Sorry for the interruption. I think one more reason for it not to be in the user class is because of abstraction. I don't think it's essential to be in the user class.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are getting there, all of us doing it. But what I really want us to now think is these principles, abstraction, encapsulation, and there are inshallah more concepts coming up, like single responsibility and so on and so forth, inshallah, right? So yes, because of your experience, I can see that you guys can tell me that it should probably belong to order, which is very positive. But I want also you guys to also start thinking about those 4 principles we have learned so far and the new principle, inshallah, we're going to learn and soon in the semester. So we can quickly go through this process now, right? So it's a good starting point. And of course, the reason I was trying to ask you a question about whether I should put into the customer or not is because to highlight this point that, use cases or the scenarios we were just looking at, they are written from an actor perspective. They are all about user system interaction. That's why you will see that the customer will do this, right? This is the way it was written. Or for example, system will validate payments and system will send a customer a copy of the order by emails. And the reason they are written like this because they are use case scenarios, and then use case scenarios at the end of the day are your actor perspective, your user system interaction. So their focus is itself on behavior, on who initializes the behavior, not whose responsibility it is to perform the behavior. Is this point clear to everyone? Right. So that's why when we look at this, you myself as a designer with less experience can start thinking and say, oh, maybe I will put them into customer, right? But the reason we get confused about them is because when we read the scenarios, they are written from an actor perspective, and the focus is on initialization of a behavior, not on whose responsibility is it to perform the behavior. And in fact, we are trying to identify whose responsibility it is to perform the behavior. All right. So, you know, uh, this is what will happen, right? So, for example, another example: check order status, right? Who will be doing it? Because as per my description, system should be doing it. What do you think? Where this should go? Should it go to customer? Should it go to system? Should I create a system class now?
No, you can't.
Yeah. So what I should do then? Where should this will go?
Maybe there is some management class.
Maybe controller.
Yes, something like that.
Maybe a controller.
So it could send for the customer.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Anybody else like to share his thought on this?
Maybe the system itself.
Maybe in order class.
Maybe in the order class.
But
so all these possible. Yeah. Yes, Mohammed.
I think the orders process, which process the sale,
yes,
could not validate or check if the order processed. If something goes wrong with the order class, it couldn't be possible to check the order status. So there would be something external or class external to the order one, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's look at this. Now, I'm just going to go step by step here, right? So we have these potential objects or classes in front of us, and our question is where this order state is going to be residing. Who is going to be responsible to check the order status, right? As quite all of us of you guys pretty much said that, you know, this should go to an order class, and the reason it should go to an order class is again from an abstraction principle. This is something to do with the order, right? This is the first thing. Second is, you know, we will learn this later on, the single responsibility, that there should be specific one group of tasks should be done by one class. Okay, but for the time being, it just satisfies the abstraction principle that is something to do with an order, because we're checking the status of an order. Yes, we have this interaction. This interaction is here. This means this is depicting that scenario in the use case where the customer will check the order status. But the order status should not be in the customer class. It should be, the behavior should be in the order class. Any questions on this key concept? I think no questions. I think everybody is comfortable with this. Now let's look at some of the other ones. What about the verify item? Where should I put this one?
An item class.
An item class, right?
Shopping cart, I think.
Shopping cart, yeah. Why shopping cart? Why not item?
Item, it represents the item himself, but shopping cart represents availability of the item, I think.
Exactly. The shopping cart is the and see what we have done here. We have in the original scenario, it was said verify items, but you as a designer basically, you know, realize that, well, really verifying items, you're allowed to do that, isn't it? You say verifying items, looking at the scenario, basically that really means, you know, somehow displaying the totals or, you know, quantities or whatever you like to call them, correct? Is this clear why it's not going into item? Anybody has a doubt about this? See, these with you guys who have been doing Java programming for maybe 2-3 years now, still it kind of, you know, raises doubts sometimes, right? And this is something we're trying to nail here now. Everybody's comfortable that it should go to shopping cart, not item? Some show of hands will help me understand. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, what about the provide payment and address? I think this is very obvious. It will go to
order.
Okay.
Order. I think order.
Address, Doctor.
Maybe address.
I think it should
Oh,
go
it's
customer
combination
payment.
provide. Okay. Oh, no.
So it's provide payment and address. Where it should go?
It should be going at payment, I guess.
Order.
I think order. Because order calls from the payment and address.
Okay, let's see. I'm kind of putting them under payment. Why? Because again, this is all about the payment, right? Yes, order needs to be paid, but this itself is actually all about the payment.
You will save them in the address and the customer classes, but you will use them in the payment class.
Okay, you're talking about the database storage here?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Should I store them in my order?
I don't think you should.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so. We don't need to. This should go back. It's because, see, this is what's happening here. This is all about payments. And, you know, because if you look at back at this sentence, if we go back here, what it says? Customer provides payments and address. And system validates payments. Right? So customer provides payments and address. It should not be in the customer, right? Though customer is kind of, giving us this information in one shape or another. It is to do with the order. Definitely, there is no doubt about it. You will maybe that's why there is no one-to-one relationship here. Customer will be placing orders, and for each order you will be making payment. But it's good idea to put it under payment because tomorrow you can have multiple payment methods, right? Correct? You can have PayPal, you can have credit card, you can have debit card, and so on and so forth, right? Or even delivery on by cash. So you don't want you want to have separation between them, right? You don't want to mix everything together. So you don't want to end up in a scenario where you kind of coming up with an order. You're calling it an order class because Dr. Sajjad said that you cannot have a system class, but at the end of the day you might end up with a system class not being called system, but it's actually kind of system class, right? You don't want to do that. Is this point clear? Like what I just said?
Yeah, it's clear. Kind of.
Right? Yeah, kind of. Inshallah, it will become more clear. I have another example. So what about the process sale? We talked about this, right? So maybe I can skip it. Process sale is all about, processing order, right? Now, what about these guys? Confirm order, provide order number, check order status.
In the order, all of it.
All of them in the order. What about validate payment?
In the payment class.
In the payment class. Yes, please.
I think in the order.
The validate payment in the order as well?
I think yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. I like these different opinions there, to be honest, because I want to have a bit of debate on this. Yes, please, Fadl.
I have a question about confirm order.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Why it's not in shopping cart?
Why not shopping cart? Yes. Okay, why not shopping cart? So let's answer them all one by one, right? So first of all, we are putting them. Validate payment was clear in a sense. Okay, so we will have two questions here now, right? So I'm putting validate payment under payment here, right? Not under order. And I'm putting all the other ones, confirm order, get order, and status under order, and not confirm order under the payment or under the shopping cart, right? These were the two potential questions, right? Now, let's start with this one, validate payment. Yes, the payments are validated against orders, but is it, think from this perspective, is this a payment behavior or it's an order behavior? To me, it's a payment behavior. And the reason it's a payment behavior because it's all about the payments, right? Similarly, confirm order is also about the orders you have. Shopping cart is all about, you know, adding the items into the shopping cart for your shopping, and actually, you know, basically, you know, as like a storage of information that you want to purchase. And then when you say I want to purchase, it becomes, you know, it then it kind of, you know, goes through the process and becomes an order. It's all about single responsibility. It's all about abstraction. Anybody who's still not sure about this?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Saud.
Sometimes the order doesn't accept like Visa, okay, and it must pay with MADA. So for this payment, I think it should be in the order also, or something like interactive with this method in the order.
Okay, now so let's take this question, this scenario where, you know, we have a specific order, like a small restaurant, and they don't accept credit card, right? Like, you know, for example, KFUPM delivery, for example, right? So if you look at this and you say that if this validate payment should be part of the order, right? The order at the end of the day is all about what? Let's look at this scenario. You are doing what? You are basically adding stuff into your shopping cart, and then you are providing some payment address and payment details and address, and you process the order. The system will validate your payments and will give you an order number, status, and so on and so forth. So if I have, where is this one? If I have what you call a MADA payment system here, for example, right? So is this MADA not a payment option? So it's not like as if you have a PayPal, credit card, MADA as a structure, or is it an order? I think it's more to do with your payment mechanism, because this is your payment mechanism, whether you are using a PayPal mechanism or you're using a MADA only. Now, all this logic of, you know, for a certain kind of an order, which payment mechanism will be applied is something you can, that's what the validate payment gonna do. Because if you're going to put this validate payment into order, what really you're doing is you are breaking the abstraction principle as well.
Yeah. And
there is another principle which is I haven't taught you guys yet, but inshallah it will come, which is single responsibility principle, which is basically that a specific class should be responsible for one type of things. We don't want to intermix them, because the moment you intermix them, you are basically losing the modularity of your application. And this will mean that, you know, it's all over the place then. right?
Right.
So, so basically what we're trying to say is that validate payment, yes, order will require it, absolutely, absolutely. But we should not be mixing these two apples and oranges. And so is true for this case, confirmation of order and shopping cart. Yes, they go hand in hand. Everything go hand in hand here. Order is like a central part here. But it is the odd confirmation of an order, not a shopping cart. A shopping cart is just a mechanism, a delivery mechanism for us in this case. Like, you know, for us to select items and place an order. All right.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And this goes to the last point as well. Send order email detail. Now, where this should go? By the way, remember, this is not like just a customer email. This is about sending email. I should be saying it's sending email.
Of course, under email.
Yeah, exactly. So let's send it under. Send. Right. Okay. So very quickly, all these different confusions we had as part of this discussion, or very important discussion we had, and I'm really, really proud of you guys, because once we discuss, then it becomes clear. So our doubts about, you know, validate payments, or our doubts about customer order, all of this actually will become more clearer. And I have said it on Thursday, and I'm going to show you with a bit of an example here. That remember, when we are working with system and when we look at the scenarios, we see the word system here. System validates payments. System does this, you know, copy of an order and everything. We can intend to do this. We can, you know, sometimes we can do this intentionally or sometimes unintentionally. See what's happening here? Validate payment coming here, right? And I'm just calling it system. I can call it order as well, right? So of course, this is to begin with, we should not be calling it system, to be honest, right? We know this, right? We should not have global master objects. Okay, we should avoid them. We should not have like a, you know, a system class which does everything. That's the first thing. And second thing is, even if you don't call them system, you call them an order, like in this case, this is the right way of doing it. This means you will start questioning yourself about this validate payment. Okay, and you say, or add item to shopping cart, for example, right? And then you will say, oh, okay, validate payment. If I have an order class, I don't have a system class because I'm not allowed to do that. I should not be doing it. This means you will question yourself and immediately will say, validate payment. This is all about payment. So it should go under payment, and the other one should go under the shopping cart. Make sense?
Yes.
Right. And this is again, don't forget the 4 principles we have learned so far. So in a nutshell, what we are saying today is we should not have these global classes like system classes. And the moment you will say, I'm not going to have a global system class, that moment you will start questioning yourself as a designer that where this behavior belongs. And when you're going to look at the payment, you will say, this for sure is something to do with the order, but at the end of the day, from an abstraction principle, this is actually payment. And so is true for the shopping cart. So I'll move them in different behaviors. And then of course, I can always create an object of them and basically, you know, basically go on and do this appropriate placement of these.
Doctor?
Yes, please.
The address class, why is it connected to order, not to customer?
Okay. Set address details. Okay.
No. The address itself, why isn't it connected to customer?
Something like this.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's go back to our scenario. Now, by the way, this is just an initial one, right? This is not a final one. So if we go back to our scenario, what's happening here? Where is the address? Customer provides payment and his address, right? And sends a copy of this one. Okay, so let's go back. Now, in this case, the designer has decided to create a class itself called address, right? And he's kind of manipulating all the addresses here, like a billing address and shipping address and so on and so forth. And the reason they didn't create a one-to-one relationship is probably because you will see later, in this case, probably what is happening is that there is no behavior here, which kind of calls the address, right? Now, if you have a behavior here, which will show that, you can go on and manipulate these addresses, of course, then we'll start creating that interaction there. It's just an example. It's not a complete system yet. Right?
Victor.
Yes, please.
The address could be an attribute for the customer, right?
Exactly. It can be an attribute of the customer. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then we'll question whether we need this class or not, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is a valid question. And this is exactly where we're going now. This is exactly where we're going now. Right? So let's go there, because since we're talking about it, let's go straight there, because this is the second thing we're going to talk about now. So alhamdulillah, it's coming natural, right? Isn't it? We stop at a question and it just becomes natural for the next one. Okay. So I'll answer this very shortly, inshallah, as part of this one now. So once you have done this exercise of identifying the basic objects, right, and looking at some basic interactions between them and identified the behaviors, basically you are almost into the fifth step, which is creating the class diagram, right? So basically you're creating the class diagram now. Now, when you create a class diagram, of course, you use UML, and I'm pretty sure you all guys are very comfortable with the symbol itself, right? And a lot of these basic concepts, right? Correct? I'm pretty sure you guys know this, right? In a UML, you have a class name and attribute and operations. So what you really do is basically at this point, what are you doing? We're getting closer to the code, right? So we're trying to now, ideally, in a very ideal world, basically what we're trying to do is we're going to create a class diagram which will apply all the good design principle in it, and then we'll give it to the developer and we'll just go on and code it, and of course he will not be making any design decisions there. He will be just translating them. So of course each class has a unique name, there is no doubt about it, and of course they have attributes. At this stage, for example, we don't know all of them yet, right? Because we have been focusing on behavior. But of course, we can always write the obvious ones, right? Like, for example, the address one was something we were talking about, and I'll talk about this very shortly. So attributes are usually easy to determine than behavior, correct? Because you will say, okay, customer has a name and it has an ID and so on and so forth, right? So before I talk about this point again, let me just complete the discussion on the class diagrams basics. So of course you will have some attributes here, right? And of course these attributes will have some kind of data type, right? And so you as a designer are taking these decisions. Of course, sometimes you like to create, specific constructors and our names and so on and so forth. Similarly, you will always have operations or behaviors. These were the ones we were trying to identify in the previous half of the lecture. And of course, we were just identifying them, but later, of course, we need to also understand what kind of parameters they have as an input parameters and what kind of output parameters they have, right? From where this information comes, how you know this? What kind of input parameters they're going to have? What kind of return values they will have?
From requirement.
From the requirement, from any specific modeling diagram, which can help us do this. which we do as part of our requirements anyway.
The sequence?
Absolutely, absolutely. The sequence diagram. Because sequence diagram, especially in the requirements phase, basically it does what? It has some actors and it has these objects, right? And of course, they have their lifelines, and of course, you know, some data is moving back and forth, right? And here you see what kind of information is moving, and basically this kind of helps you identify what kind of information gonna be put as an input, what kind of information is coming back, so on and so forth. Right. Of course, we use sequence diagrams ourselves in the design as well, where we talk about the controllers and entities and all that kind of stuff, but not at this stage, right? Everybody's comfortable with this so far? This is something which is very common and natural to you guys, right? So far, so good. Some show of hands will give me a confident here, inshallah. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Now, what is this? What's happening here?
Private.
Private, public.
Exactly.
Private.
Which design principle we're applying here?
Encapsulation.
Encapsulation. Absolutely. Absolutely. And why we are making them all private?
Encapsulation.
Yeah, absolutely. Why we're making them private?
For abstraction.
Yeah,
So no one can interrupt it or change it.
exactly.
Abstraction.
Encapsulation. Abstraction is this rights and all of this is encapsulation. So we're kind of, you know, grouping them together, and we're kind of make sure that nobody else can access it. And our rule of thumb in encapsulation is that we will make everything private unless we have to make them public, right? So this is true for visibility naturally, right, which is encapsulation principle. And of course, we will have, you know, few of these parameter methods, behaviors as public because they need to be public for it to work. And some of them we can make them as private as well. In this case, for example, I'm just an example, like for example, format product details, we make them private. Again, we want to apply an encapsulation. Our encapsulation rule says make everything private unless you need to make something public. And we decide to make it private, you as a designer, because you know that this is something which is only going to be used internally by an object. And it's something you're going to only be used internally by an object. Basically, you don't need to make it public to other classes as well. Right? Now what I'm saying here, avoid building plain data structures. Now, what we have done here is that we have customer ID, name, email address, phone number, purchase, so on and so forth. Or similarly, we have a lot of stuff for order, number, amount, status, type. Now, the key point here is that if you jump straight to object creation, often we will focus on data. If we are less experienced as designer, we will start by, for example, thinking about customer object, and then we will say it has customer ID, customer name, email. Well, they are very obvious attributes and there's no doubt about it. But if you find yourself defining a class that does not have any behavior at all, basically it's a question mark. We should go back and rethink. Focus on what the object do, not just viewing them as dumb data structures, right? It's true that objects may need these attributes, but it is a wrong initial focus. What I'm saying here now, what's the nutshell of this discussion?
Make classes that are important, not just dump data or classes.
Exactly. In other words, we are saying, and this is what we said in the last half of the lecture and even on Thursday, that once you have identified your objects, the first thing is don't think about attributes. Think about their behaviors. Because yes, You need attributes. There is no doubt about it. They are obvious ones. They will be there. But if we are less experienced, we're going to start off with thinking about their attributes first, and eventually we might end up with a scenario like this, where we have a whole bunch of attributes documented, but probably no behavior, right? So if you have a class which has no behavior in it, what this indicates to you? It will indicate to you that, either I'm missing some behaviors or I don't need this class. Okay. And that's why we recommend that, basically what to do. We say go on and don't think about the creation of an object from starting point. Don't think about it. Yes, you will be creating objects. There's no doubt about it. But this is not your right focus. This is not your correct initial focus. Your correct initial focus will be to think about the behaviors and then add attributes into it. Everybody's comfortable with this point? Because this is very, very important for us to understand.
Yes.
All right. So I'm expecting now, inshallah, that as you guys move along, and inshallah, there will be some assignments coming very shortly. You will, given a scenario, you will identify your objects, then you will try to identify your behaviors first, and then you fill in your attributes. And of course, when you do this, of course, there will be changes in your behaviors, in parameters, or you may add or you may delete. And remember, when you are creating these classes and adding behaviors and attributes, especially attributes, make sure you follow the abstraction principle. Okay, and abstraction principle was what? Have only absolutely necessary data there. Okay, not all data, which is required for that application, have it. And then apply encapsulation principle, which means make them private, all of them, unless you need to make them public, and so on and so forth, right? So maybe we're really getting close to the time of the end of the lecture, maybe 3 to 4 minutes to go. So I'm just going to talk about this. I'm pretty sure you guys know this, so I'm going to use this and breeze through it, and then we'll stop. And inshallah, we'll complete this on Tuesday. So if you have a saving account class, for example, right, and you will create these two objects out of it, a Joey account and of course an Alan's account, they have their own data and logic, right? Remember, objects have three things, right? Identity, data, and logic. So if you have something like an interest rate, which is going to be common across these objects, what to do? For example, you have a business rules that all accounts will have this interest rate. What are you going to do now?
Make it static.
Make it static. And this is something you guys have been doing it from your ICS 1 or 2 days. So basically, you're going to make it static. And the moment you make it static, it becomes basically available common across all these, objects. And basically, this is the way you create your static objects, right? Static variables, right? I'm assuming everybody has done this. Of course, different programming languages allow you to create these static variables in different ways, right? But for example, in Java, that's the way you do it. Now, of course, what you do is basically you use the class name to access it, right? You don't really need to create an object for it. And you best just say saving account dot interest rate, and you just basically access it. Even if you have not initialized any object, you can still use any of the variable which are defined as static. And I'm pretty sure everybody has done this. So basically what you can do is you can go on and create or set interest rates without even creating objects of that specific class. And we'll stop with this. What's happening here? What's the static method?
Class level method.
Class level method. What's so special about it?
It's independent from the object.
You can access it from everywhere.
You can access it from whether it's independent. Anything else?
You can only access static attributes from this method.
You can only access static variables or attributes through this method. Why you will create static methods?
Change the values of the static attributes.
Exactly. And again, you know, this is a tool available to you as a designer, and you're allowed to use this tool, right? As long as there's a logic behind it, right? Okay, so I think it's nearly 10:50 now, so we can stop it here, right? Let me take the attendance, and if you have any questions, please let me know.